I want you to think back to a really specific and probably very frustrating moment in your life.
Oh, we all have one of those.
Right. Consider a time when you set out to learn a massive, just overwhelming new skill.
Like coding or maybe an instrument?
Exactly. Or, like so many of us, a completely new language. You
Right.
gather all the materials, you download the apps, you carve out the time in your
You
schedule.
have all the right intentions.
All of them. And yet, despite putting in, an enormous amount of effort, you just completely hit a wall.
Yeah.
You feel entirely hopelessly stuck. And if that sounds familiar to you, you are absolutely not alone.
It is an incredibly universal experience. I mean, when you hit that wall, the initial reflex is almost always to blame yourself.
Always.
The internal narrative just defaults to, thinking you aren't smart enough or you just don't have the right kind of brain for languages.
Or you lack the discipline.
Right, the discipline to see it through. But the reality of how the human brain actually acquires complex skills is vastly different from those self-defeating thoughts.
Which is the core focus of today's deep dive. We are going on a mission to completely rewire your approach to learning.
We really are.
And we're going to extract the underlying mechanics of how humans actually build fluency and real confidence.
And I think the most encouraging part of all this is that it completely bypasses those traditional miserable methods.
Oh, the endless grammar drills.
Yes, the rote memorization, the boring textbook stuff. We're essentially looking at a masterclass in the psychology of learning today.
Because this isn't about, grammar rules. It's about psychology.
Exactly. We want to show you how to achieve massive, tangible results by making incredibly small, almost painless changes to your daily routine.
Because when you understand how your brain physically acquires and processes new information.
You can start fighting against your own neurology. You start leveraging it instead.
So let's start with that foundational psychology. Specifically, this concept of escaping the stuck mindset.
This is huge.
There is a hard line between a stuck mindset and a growing mindset. Think about the internal dialogue you have when you're struggling with a new concept. The stuck mindset is that little voice that just declares, I am bad at this.
Right. It feels so final.
It does. It operates like a permanent condition. But the alternative, the growing mindset, simply reframes that to, I am learning this.
And it seems like a minor semantic difference, right? Just changing one or two words. But biologically, it dictates how your brain allocates resources.
How so?
Well, the phrasing dictates the biology because of how the nervous system interprets definitive statements. So, I am bad at this acts as a closed door.
Nah.
It signals to your brain that the effort is over, the verdict is in, and there's absolutely no evolutionary benefit to wasting more energy on the task.
So the brain just literally powers down its problem-solving centers.
It powers down, but there is a very specific, highly actionable way to force that door back open. There's a single magic word you can use to disrupt that shutdown sequence.
And that word is yet.
Yet. It's so simple.
You just append yet to the end of your negative thought. Like if you're reading a complex sentence and your instinct is to think, I do not understand this.
You intervene. You change it to, I do not understand this yet.
Or, I'm not fluent yet. It takes that heavy, static feeling of failure and it transforms it into a trajectory.
You're telling your brain that the current struggle is just a temporary data point along a much longer journey. It's not the final destination.
It instantly shifts the brain out of that threat response, right? Where it feels defeated.
Exactly. It moves you into a state of neuroplasticity and future potential. It keeps the cognitive pathways open. And I think this brings up a secondary issue regarding how we view our mistakes during this whole process.
Oh, absolutely. There is a highly relatable analogy here that completely shifts the paradigm on mistakes.
The baby analogy.
Yes, think about a one-year-old baby learning to walk. Let's just call her Baby Mia.
Okay, baby Mia.
When Baby Mia is in the early stages of walking, she is objectively terrible at it.
Just awful.
Right, she stands up, she wobbles, and she falls down. And she does this dozens of times a day. But when she falls, the adults in the room don't look at her and say, wow, Mia, you are really bad at walking.
You clearly lack the discipline for this, Mia.
Right. You should probably just stick to crawling.
That would be absurd. It's an absurd expectation to place on a developing motor system.
Instead, we applaud the effort. We cheer her on. We encourage her to try again. Because intuitively, we understand that the fall is a necessary, non-negotiable part of the process.
The fall is her nervous system mapping its environment.
Exactly.
When baby Mia falls, her brain is actively pruning incorrect motor sequences. It's getting sensory feedback that says, okay, shifting weight to the left at that exact angle results in a loss of balance.
So the mistakes aren't failures at all.
Not at all. They are literal data points.
Huh.
They are the essential information the brain requires to build myelin, which is that insulation around nerve fibers that makes pathways faster and more efficient.
And this really demands a serious evaluation of our own adult learning habits. Because why do we extend total grace to a toddler's developing brain, but completely deny it to our own?
We hold ourselves to a standard of immediate perfection that completely defies basic biology.
We really do. When you make an error while speaking a new language or, writing a piece of code, you're simply baby Mia falling down. You are just gathering data.
Gathering data, that's it.
But let me push back on this a little bit, because understanding that mistakes are good doesn't necessarily change the way we schedule our actual study time.
Right.
I want to look at the trap of the marathon study session, because this is a near universal pitfall.
Oh, the marathon session, it's a trap.
Let me set the scene. It is Saturday morning. You have a fresh cup of coffee. The house is totally quiet. And you decide you're going to brute force your way to fluency.
I'm going to study for 5 hours today.
Exactly. You commit to 5 solid hours. You sit down feeling incredibly disciplined. But by hour 2, your eyes are just scanning the page, your mind is wandering, and you are secretly just agonizing over what to make for lunch.
And the clinical term for what you're experiencing in that 3rd, 4th, and 5th hour is fake progress.
Fake progress.
You are physically anchored to the desk, right, which gives you the illusion of productivity. But the actual encoding of new memories stopped hours ago.
Because of cognitive fatigue.
Yes. When we look at cognitive fatigue, pushing the brain past its natural attention span triggers the release of stress hormones, primarily cortisol.
And cortisol is not great for memory.
No, it's terrible.
Yeah.
When learning stops feeling like an engaging discovery and starts feeling like a punishing chore, that elevated cortisol actively blocks the hippocampus from forming new memories.
Wow.
So those extra 3 hours, they are not just inefficient, they are biologically useless.
But wait, society drills this no pain, no gain mentality into us. If I am putting in the raw hours and I power through the fatigue, surely I'm building mental endurance, right?
That is such a fundamental misunderstanding of cognitive acquisition. No pain, no gain might work for tearing muscle fibers in a gym, but applying it to the brain creates a severe negative reinforcement loop.
Negative loop.
It's called the next time effect.
Okay, what is the next time effect?
How you feel at the exact moment you conclude a study session directly dictates the neurochemical baseline you're going to have when you attempt to start the next one.
Ah, okay.
So if you push yourself until you are absolutely exhausted, frustrated, miserable, your brain tags the entire concept of studying as a high-threat, painful experience.
Which totally explains the dread.
Exactly.
The next day, when you even look at your textbook, you feel this massive wave of resistance because your brain is literally trying to protect you from repeating a painful activity.
It's trying to keep you safe from the textbook.
So the alternative is completely counterintuitive then. You have to stop while it still feels easy.
You have to. If you end a session after just 10 or 15 minutes of high-focus, low-stress attention, you haven't depleted your cognitive reserves.
Your brain remembers the interaction as safe, manageable, light.
And consequently, the friction to start again the next day is practically zero.
There's a profound parable that perfectly illustrates this power of consistency. Imagine a person standing in a massive empty field, and they're tasked with building a giant, sprawling brick wall.
Just a massive wall.
Right. And looking at the sheer scale of the project induces total paralysis. It's just too much to process. But a mentor intervenes and says, do not try to build a wall today. Erase the wall from your mind entirely. Your only job is to lay one single brick as perfectly as you can.
I love that.
Learning a complex language is that giant wall. A 15-minute focus session, or even just mastering 2 new vocabulary words on your morning commute, is laying one perfect brick.
The goal isn't fluency by sunset. The goal is simply laying today's brick.
And the neurological advantage here is that the brain thrives on regular, spaced-out exposure. Consistency will always beat intensity.
Which naturally leads us to the challenge of execution, right?
Right. If consistency is the goal, how do we lay those daily bricks without feeling like we have to invent extra hours in our already overwhelmed schedules?
We have to shift our reliance away from active sit-down studying. We need to engineer our environments for passive, incidental learning.
Incidental learning. That's absorbing information naturally through context, rather than forced memorization.
Exactly. And one of the most effective zero-effort hacks for this is simply changing the language settings on your smartphone and your social media apps to your target language.
It is such a simple intervention, but it's brilliant.
It leverages the forgetting curve. We lose memory of newly learned knowledge in a matter of days or weeks unless that information is consciously reviewed.
So by changing your phone's language, you are artificially interrupting that forgetting curve dozens of times a day.
Dozens of times. Because you already possess the spatial memory of where the icons are, you know where the settings gear is.
You know exactly where the shear arrow is.
Right. So when you see the new vocabulary word for settings superimposed on that familiar icon, your brain instantly bridges the gap through context.
You're interacting with the language to execute a real-world goal, like setting an alarm, rather than just staring at a flashcard.
You end up exposing yourself to essential vocabulary 50 to 100 times a day just by living your normal life.
Just by checking your phone. Another incredibly effective habit for laying daily bricks is self-talk.
Oh, self-talk is great.
It's the practice of becoming the active narrator of your own daily routine.
Narrating your mundane actions out loud, or even just in your head, forces you to retrieve vocabulary dynamically.
So you're in the kitchen making breakfast, and you deliberately think the phrase, "I am making coffee." You walk to the hallway and think, "I am opening the door."
The water is cold.
"I am putting on my shoes." You take the dry vocabulary out of a sterile textbook environment and map it onto your physical reality.
And taking that a step further into the cognitive science, narrating your life creates multi-sensory integration.
Multi-sensory integration.
Yeah. When you say the phrase, "I am making coffee" in your target language while you are physically feeling the warmth of the mug, smelling the roasted beans, hearing the machine run,
You are encoding that vocabulary across multiple sensory centers in the brain.
it creates a robust three-dimensional memory that is significantly harder to forget. You're also naturally implementing spaced repetition throughout your day, which is the exact mechanism required to transfer data from short-term working memory into permanent long-term storage.
Okay, so we've restructured our environment for incidental learning. We are laying our single bricks every day. We are embracing our baby Mia
And
mistakes.
you're doing all the right things.
But even with all those foundations in place, there is one final, massive roadblock that keeps learners perpetually stuck in a state of hesitation.
Ah, yes.
The translation trap.
The translation trap is essentially a bottleneck in the brain's processing power. It's the habit of using your native language as an unavoidable middleman.
Let's break down exactly what this looks like in practice, because this is the primary reason real-time conversation feels so exhausting.
It really is.
When someone speaks to you in a new language, you hear the words. Instead of understanding them directly, your brain first translates each word back into your native language.
Step 1.
Then, you formulate your response in your native language. Step 2. Next, you translate that response back into the target language. Step 3. And only then do you actually speak.
It's exhausting just hearing you describe it.
You are running a grueling internal assembly line for every single sentence.
And the cognitive load of that process is astronomical. The human working memory can only hold a handful of items at any given moment.
Right.
When you force it to run two distinct linguistic software programs simultaneously while also trying to manage the social dynamics of a conversation,
System just crashes.
it crashes. You hesitate, you lose the thread of the conversation, and your confidence plummets. To achieve actual fluency, you have to ruthlessly eliminate the middleman.
Cut the middleman.
You must stop tethering new vocabulary to the words of your native language and begin linking them directly to concepts, images, and physical sensations.
So there's a perfect illustration of this with the word apple.
The apple example.
Yes. If you are an English speaker learning Spanish, and you're trying to learn the word manzana, your instinct is to memorize the equation. Manzana equals apple.
But apple is the middleman.
Exactly. You do not need it. The word apple is just a random collection of sounds we agreed upon to describe a fruit.
So the intervention here is visual and conceptual. When you hear the target word, you must train your mind's eye to instantly conjure the image of a red, sweet, crisp fruit.
You link the new auditory signal directly to the physical reality of the object.
By bypassing that native language translation step, you begin constructing a direct neural superhighway. The thoughts and concepts flow instantly into the new language because they're tethered to the real world, not a bilingual dictionary.
And building that superhighway also requires a shift in how we handle sentence structure, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
We need to stop learning language as isolated, single words and start learning in chunks.
Chunks are the secret to speed.
Because too many learners treat language like a mathematical equation. They try to perfectly sequence individual pieces based on abstract grammar rules. They're mentally calculating I plus the verb to be plus the adjective hungry.
It's incredibly slow.
Painfully slow. Instead, you just memorize the entire chunk. I'm hungry.
Native speakers rarely construct sentences from scratch, word by word. We rely heavily on an arsenal of prefabricated chunks.
Right, things we just know go together.
When you acquire the entire phrase as a single unit of meaning, it's instantly ready for deployment. The grammar is inherently correct because it was learned as an intact block, which drastically reduces the processing power required to speak fluently.
But knowing the chunk in your head and physically producing it in real time are two very different challenges.
Oh, yeah. The physical hardware.
Right. How do we get our physical hardware, our mouths and vocal cords, to cooperate with this new superhighway?
That gap between cognitive understanding and physical production is bridged by a technique known as shadowing.
Shadowing.
Shadowing is, for all intents and purposes, a high-intensity workout for the physical mechanics of speech.
It's training the articulatory system, meaning the actual physical muscles in your tongue, lips, jaw, and vocal tract.
Because when we are adults, those muscles have spent decades moving in very specific, habitual patterns to produce our native language.
They literally have to be trained to move in new ways.
Exactly. And the protocol for shadowing is incredibly straightforward. You select a piece of native audio, a scene from a TV show, a segment of an audiobook.
Oh, or a deep dive like this one.
Right. You play a short sentence, pause it, and immediately repeat the audio out loud. But the key is that you aren't just reciting the transcript.
You are attempting to mimic the speaker with absolute precision.
You copy their rhythm, their specific intonation, the exact duration of their pauses, and the underlying emotion of the delivery.
You act entirely as a parrot.
A parrot, yes.
You strip away the pressure of deciding what to say, which frees up 100% of your cognitive bandwidth to focus exclusively on how it is said.
You're giving your articulatory muscles the repetitions they need to build muscle memory for the new phonetic sounds.
And by removing the anxiety of sentence creation, shadowing allows you to comfortably bridge that massive divide between passive listening comprehension and active, confident vocalization.
It's a game changer.
So, when we pull all of these concepts together, a very clear, cohesive philosophy emerges here.
It really does.
The massive takeaway from all of this is that learning a complex skill, especially a language, is not about striving for flawless mechanical perfection.
It is fundamentally about connection and communication.
You do not need to lock yourself in a room for 5 hours until your cortisol levels spike and you hate the process.
Please don't do that.
You simply need to focus on laying one single, manageable brick today. You have to actively utilize the word yet when you hit a roadblock.
And you have to fundamentally accept that stumbling, forgetting, and making errors is precisely how your brain gathers the data it needs to grow. Remember baby Mia.
Remember baby Mia. It requires a profound shift in personal expectations. You are transitioning away from a state of constant performance anxiety and moving toward a framework of natural, habitual, and sustainable growth.
That is the real goal.
Which leads us to a specific challenge for you listening right now. We want you to take just one of the small, almost painless habits we explored today and implement it before you go to sleep.
Just one. Do not attempt to overhaul your entire life at once.
Maybe you take 30 seconds right now to change the language settings on your phone.
Or maybe you carve out just 5 minutes tonight to practice shadowing a scene from a movie.
Or perhaps your only objective today is to grant yourself a moment of grace. Consciously say yet the next time you feel out of your depth. Pick your one brick and lay it today.
And as you move forward laying those daily bricks, I want to leave you with a slightly different perspective to consider.
Oh, I like this.
Throughout our educational lives, we expend an enormous amount of mental energy trying to mask our deficiencies. In language learning specifically, people tirelessly battle to eradicate their native accent as the ultimate trophy of success.
Right, trying to sound perfect.
But consider the reality of human connection. Your accent is not a failure of the articulatory system. It is the auditory map of your life's journey. It tells the story of where you began and the massive effort you undertook to bridge the gap to another culture. So, what if the drive to sound like a perfect, indistinguishable native speaker is actually erasing the exact history, vulnerability, and humanity that makes you an interesting person to speak with in the first place?
That is a brilliant reframing of what it means to truly communicate. It really changes the whole perspective. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive, and we will catch you next time.